Okay, we're on to part 2 of our video, and this is how we make it into an actual coaster. So we need to trim around the edges so that we can fold those edges back under the coaster and stick them down. So you want to leave about 1 centimetre, a little bit more than 1 centimetre of a border as you cut around. The tricky bit are the little points, and what you want to do for the points in between the petals is cut right down to the middle of the petal and then make a slit so that what we've got there is a little tab that's going to go under. Carry on then cutting your border. So with your glue, there's a little cap that prevents it leaking that you need to take off, and then you just twist the lid back on and you're ready to go. And now we're going to cut in the same way that we're doing for the pieces in between the petals. So that's a little snip there is going to allow that bit of fabric to get tucked under there. And then we're going to keep snipping about 1-2 centimetre intervals. You can always make them smaller if you need to once you've snipped. Go right to the edge of your punch needle so that we can tuck this fabric right under the coaster. And this is the technique you'd use for anything that you wanted to make like this, where you want to cover the back of the punch needle. So if you're making a key ring or a little art piece or something like that, then you would use this method. So now we've cut our tabs. If you're using glue, this is going to be tricky. I'm not going to lie. It's fiddly because the glue because you're trying to make something stick where it doesn't really want to go, you're going to need to reinforce the glue with either some little clips or with a piece of paper, then a heavy book, just to encourage the fabric to stick to the underside. If you're going to use a glue gun, I'll show you, it is much easier. The fabric pieces just stick immediately. So I will show you the difference. So we've got our glue, and we are just going to go sections by section because it is quite fiddly. So you need to get glue right on the edge of your petal, and then we're going to be pushing those down. You can actually put a bit more glue a bit further in to capture the big ends, and just coax them round. And then the best method that I have found is to, little by little, clamp the pieces of fabric down with a paper clip and just keep going all the way around your daisy like this, so that these bits of fabric stick down nicely. So this one I need to cut this one a little bit more so that it can go around the corner. And then I'm going to add a little bit more glue onto the top of that. But you can see the technique, which is just to go round tab by tab and glue those down. And get the paper clips in at the corner points where it is a little bit tricky for the fabric to stay stuck down. So I'm going to put one in here, just so it really encourages that piece of fabric to stay put. So folded over my tabs, I've glued them, and then I'm putting the paper clips on just to hold it down. And then eventually you will have a daisy. Leave that glue to dry overnight. So that's the method with the glue. The alternative method is exactly the same, but because the glue gun is a stronger glue and it dries faster, you just get a much better finish. So I'm going to do this really gradually, a little piece of fabric at a time, folding those over, adding more glue if I need to. Try not to add too much glue because you don't want it to get really kind of chunky around the edges with the glue. But just take your time, cut the tabs if you need to cut the tabs a little bit more to get them to go around the corners. But you can just see they stick down immediately as opposed to the PVA glue, which just takes a while to dry. So as I'm putting the tabs down, I'm just going to trim the corner of that one to make it a bit neater. And I'm going to cut that one in two so I can get those to fold over a bit better. So use a pencil or something like that to help you with these corners so you don't totally burn your fingers off. It is tricky around the bits of the petal that go into a point. It's messy, it's a little bit fiddly, but you will get there. Take it piece by piece and enjoy the process of finishing off your daisy. I'm just going to cut this one. It's a bit of a corner piece, so I can afford to cut that corner off. And that one. And just fold that over. You tend to get these hairs with glue guns, but at the end, when it's all done, we can just trim away those hairs. So you don't want to do too many tabs in advance. You don't want to glue too much down too early because the glue dries really quickly, and you'll just end up making your daisy shape a bit bulky with glue. So just take it 2 or 3 at a time. Paying particular attention to these corner bits. Getting as much of the fabric to stick down as you can, even right into that corner. So once that's all glued, it's not going to look pretty, but we're going to cover this up. So just trim any rogue bits of fabric or glue off. Not going to show through. And then we're going to back it with our sticky back velvet. A little edit at this point, so you are just tracing around your felt, around your flower. When you cut round that felt, cut slightly bigger than the pencil line, and that's going to give you just a little bit of a lip of felt for this twisted braid of wool to sit on. That will stick to that felt, and it will make it much easier to then secure it with glue, with little blobs of glue. So that is just something I have discovered in doing this myself. So this is the back of my sticky back velvet, so I'm going to put the flower shape right side up onto the back, and I'm going to trace a line around with my pencil that I've ruined with the glue gun, but actually miraculously still works. Now, a bit to note about this is you will ruin the scissors that you use to cut this with, or at least temporarily gunk them up. So don't use your best fabric or embroidery scissors. Use a pair of scissors you don't mind getting messed up. So we now have the perfect shape piece of velvet. Mine is felt, but yours will be velvet. Give it a really good press down. Now this is an optional finishing off piece that you can do. So you can just trim the slight excess of this felt around the daisy coaster and then that's you done. But you are still able to see sometimes little bits of fabric on this join. So an optional finishing off is don't trim that felt away just yet. What we're going to do is get a length of wool and fold it in half and then twist it. This is going to be a gradual process as we go round. I'm going to secure with my glue gun the first bit in the middle of a petal, and then as you twist it round you can stick it in between the coaster, punch needle piece and the felt, and that will give you a nice little border. So you need to be patient with this bit. As I'm doing it, it is sticking slightly to the felt, which is kind of useful, but what I'm going to do is put little tiny glue gun marks to keep that secure. So I think you would definitely be able to do this with the PVA. You're just going to need to use your paper clips to add a dot of glue and then secure it on. So a tiny bit of glue. Tiny bit of glue. So you can just see that little border starting to form there of twisted wool as I'm sticking it around the edges. So take your time and keep twisting and sticking, letting it dry, and then twisting again. Remembering to keep twisting the same way. That is the end of the tutorial. My biggest piece of advice is practice. So we have given you enough fabric for you to be able to at least practice one daisy coaster, practice your stitching, practice the technique of gluing the backs down. You will only have enough backing felt for 4 final daisy coasters, so you won't be able to practice that bit. But we will put extra supplies of the whole kit on our website. So if you do want to just really practice and really get the hang of it before you do final coasters, then there is that option. This is probably one of the trickiest hoop clubs we've ever put out there. It takes patience and it does take practice. Honestly, your first coaster will be so different to your 4th coaster. So just stick at it, ask us questions, put questions on the Facebook group page, work through this and get really good at punch needling together.